Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ANCAP Radio, wherever you are in the world right now. Thank you for tuning in to another episode. We are getting ready to dive in today with the man, the myth, the legend, Nick Giambruno, who is a renowned speculator, international investor, is the founder of the Financial Underground and editor-in-chief of its premium investment research publication, Financial Underground Speculator. Nick travels the world searching for lucrative investment opportunities in overlooked markets, and he specializes in identifying big picture geopolitical and economic trends ahead of the crowd. I can validate that. He definitely does from getting to know Nick. His approach to investing also focuses on profiting from distortions in the market. This includes identifying unfounded pessimisms in beaten up industries, which creates opportunities for enormous gains. He writes about geopolitics, value investing in crisis markets, Bitcoin. We've had him here on the show before, actually, to talk about Bitcoin. Maybe we'll go that direction a little bit here today as we're heading into the new year. I know there's a lot of buzz around crypto right now. But international banking, second passports, he's very knowledgeable there. International diversification, surviving a financial collapse, and many other topics. He's traveled to over 60 countries and has lived in 6 of them. Previously worked in the Middle East with a Dubai-based investment bank. That's largely part of the reason why we have him here today. As you can see, the title of today's show. He's also been featured in several popular publications: The Economist, Forbes, Zero Hedge, Seeking Alpha, the Herald Zimbabwe, the Kaiser Report, and many, many, many more. Casey Research, international man. He's very well connected there. LouRockwell.com, the Tom Woods Show. The list goes on and on, folks. Truly an ANCAP, truly an international man of mystery. 100%. Somewhere out there is a great ripple effect of Doug Casey, who I know has really helped us get this platform off the ground and running too. So anyways, Nick, it's great to have you back here on ANCAP Radio. As we kick things off, could you just share with our audience, a little bit about what you're seeing in the market? I know we're going to dive into some stuff here on the Middle East today, but being the speculator and the investor that you are, what are just some common things that you're seeing right now that you think a lot of people aren't paying attention to? And you're on mute right now, Nick. Sure. All right. Well, as we help Nick out here to get unmuted, we'll say, again, this is ANCAP Radio. Now, if you're first-time listener, long-time listener, it's great to have you here. See some familiar faces here already. Good to see you, Jaffer, Eric, Jason. Guys, make sure you hit the retweet button and the like button as well if you haven't already. And pay attention to the thread as we make our way through today's conversation today as well. There'll be a lot of helpful links dropped in there. And by the way, we're giving away an award, the Guy Fawkes Award, which the winner of that will receive $1,000 cash prize, all in Bitcoin, and it's for someone. It's up to you, right? The nominor, whoever you want to nominate, someone who is successfully fighting the state and winning right now. We want to reward that person. So if you have a nominee, you can send that nomination to ancapradio@gmail.com. And just note, if your person gets selected, you do actually get 20% of that $1,000 Bitcoin reward. You can do the math. Just trying to help everyone take things to the next level when it comes up to standing against the big, mean state. So I see we are going back and forth here with Nick to get him up to speak. Once he's ready to go, I think what we'll do is we'll shift straight into today's topic instead of talking about investments to get it started, just because I know he has a lot to get into. I'm truthfully looking forward to this one, folks. As you've seen, Twitter's been a bit of a bloodbath lately. Then again, when is it not? But in regards to the Middle East conflict, Israel, Palestine, got to be some of the top buzzwords the internet has seen since Trump left office, right? I know all the, and by no means am I a Trump fan, but I know the lefties and CNN and all those companies, their ratings started to drop once they couldn't put Trump in the headlines. So now I know Israel and Palestine in the headlines definitely pulls a lot of traffic. Seems like the conflict is, and I could be getting this wrong, somewhat calming down, if that's even a possibility. However, Nick and I, we started talking about this about over a month ago, and I noticed he's really not the only, but one of the few fellow Americans, I should say, who was talking about this in a way that is not popular. And I love it because it's typically the unpopular viewpoint tends to be the right one, or one that's worth considering. So getting his take, especially as someone who lived in the Middle East, on what's going on out there from an ANCAP perspective is just, I'm very excited for today's show. So I'm going to head over to our internal beauty of live events, right, folks? Head over to our internal chat here and see how we're doing on the connection. Nick, he is, like I said, he's an international man of mystery, so I know he is coming to us from a remote location today, so I'm sure that's part of the reason for the delay here. But what else? I could talk. I'm a radio guy. I'm a podcaster, right? So if you guys need me to talk for 55 minutes, I will. One thing that we've been teasing out and we're very excited about here at ANCAP Radio, and you can actually go to ancapradio.com right now. Go to ancapradio.com right now and check out our landing page. We'll have the full website up and running very soon. We're looking at bringing on a handful of new shows here coming into the new year. And so I know my buddy Jaffer, who's in the crowd right now, is always craving more content here. We've got it coming for you. Some upcoming guests that we're looking at. These are just teasers, none confirmed yet. But it looks like Jeff Berwick might be coming back on here soon. Of course, coupled with Doug Casey. We'll get you guys a date on that once that one's confirmed. Gregory Sams will be coming back on. Luis Kenny looking at making a guest appearance soon. Luis Kenny is someone, Argentinian investor, been living in Argentina since he was born, I believe in the 40s or the 50s. So it's been really cool to hear his take on what's going on right now with Malay. So Luis Kenny coming up. We've got. I almost feel like I can't say the name because I don't want to get too far ahead of it, guys. But we'll look at it this way. There's somebody who has been on Joe Rogan's show multiple times that we might have a chance of getting on ANCAP Radio. I would say within the next 3 months. So the conversations have begun. That's the most I can say right now without spilling too much beans, but we're definitely looking forward to that. The merchandise is coming together. The ANCAP Radio cigar, Eleuthermaniacs. We're working on building out our membership platform. And if you don't know what an Eleuthermaniac is, I'm gonna butcher this. Dave Henderson's gonna tune in and hear me butcher this one, but basically someone who's allergic to the state. I think that's what an Eleuthermaniac is. So, anyways, here we are. We are set, ready to rock. Nick Giambruno is here, and Nick, we're gonna go ahead and dive straight into what you have for us today. So, really looking forward to it, and especially just getting your take, which I kind of alluded to is the less popular one, which makes me think it's got to have a lot of truth to it. So, the mic is yours.
Sounds great, Adam. Can you hear me now?
We can. We're good.
Awesome. Thank you. I apologize for this technical difficulties, and thank you for your introduction. But let's dive right into this. We're talking about the Middle East conflict today and some related geopolitical issues. Now, a lot of people, it is somewhat complex, but it is not that complicated in the sense that it is possible, very easy to actually wrap your mind around the situation. It just needs to be put in the proper historical context and in the proper frame. So I'm going to attempt to do that and help get some clarity on this. And because there's so much confusion, so much propaganda, and just bad information, frankly, on this. So I'm going to start with 5 undisputable facts about this conflict between the Israelis and the Palestinians. That are just facts. I mean, it doesn't matter what your perspective is, and these are just important foundational facts to get a good handle on what is really going on here. So I'm going to start with go through the list of the 5 facts, and then go through each one in more detail, and then I'll talk more about the conflict and more about what I think the solutions could be, and also the wider geopolitical implications of it. And if you have any questions, or Adam, along the way, just feel free to interrupt me. But I'm going to go ahead and start with you. Okay, so the first fact is that, and I think any ANCAP, or most reasonable people, should be able to agree that all property rights are individual. There's no such thing as collective property rights. Property rights are only individual. Fact number 2, property rights only extend to provable individual claims. Fact number 3, this conflict has been going on for about 100 years. A lot of people think it's been going on for thousands of years, or on the other end, some people think the conflict started on October 7th. The reality is the conflict has been going on for about 100 years. So I'll get more into that in a moment. Fact number 4, Israel does not have and never has had defined borders. They've been undefined ever since the state of Israel came into existence up until this day. It's kind of odd, a state not having defined borders, but it does. It does not have defined borders. Fact number 5, Israel is not a U.S. ally, and that is in the technical sense of the term and also practical sense. So I'm going to go through all of these in more detail. And these are just 5 undisputable facts to kind of lay the foundation. So when you hear about this conflict, you often hear property, and this conflict is fundamentally about property. It's not about anything else. The fundamental issue here is a dispute about property. So this is where the discussion should center, is on property. The fact is that property rights are not collective. Nobody has collective ownership because you're part of a group to certain property. Individuals have claims to property. So I think that is a very important foundational thing, because you often hear about this, oh, the Arabs own this, or the Jews own this, or this group owns this, and this is just not the way to think of it. You have to think in terms of individuals. Nobody has. I'm Italian. I don't have a claim to the property in Italy just because of because of a collective claim to property. So it's kind of absurd it's kind of just when you think of it more than on the surface level that collective property rights are kind of it's an absurd notion. So all property rights are individual. Property rights only extend to provable individual claims. So you can't just say something like that, there's some fairy tale about what happened, ancient fairy tale about what happened 2,000 years ago, and that's what gives you property rights. It does not. That's not what gives you property rights. So it's actually not possible to trace individual property rights back 2,000 years. It's just not possible. So where do you draw the line? How far back do property rights extend? It's actually a very valid and a legitimate question. I would say, and I think a lot of people, most reasonable people would, is what you can prove. How far back can you prove it? Nobody can trace individual property rights back 2,000 years ago, not just in Israel and Palestine, but anywhere. It's just ridiculous. You can try to make the argument for collective property rights, but that's an absurdity in and of itself. So what we have here is, but you can trace property rights back to 1948, and in that era of when there was the creation of the state of Israel, and before that. So you can trace people have deeds, people have other records of property ownership going back to 1948 and a little bit before then is possible, and it's not only possible. People do have the proof and the records. So I would say property rights extend to provable individual claims. That's a very key point. And the fact is, many Palestinians still have the title deeds to their homes that they were dispossessed from. Not only the title deeds, they used to have the key. They still have the keys to the home. The locks have obviously changed, or the house isn't there. But in the previous decades, the symbol, it's not used as much anymore. But if you look at media from the 70s, 80s, and so forth, the symbol of the Palestinians used to be the symbol of the key, because it symbolized they had the key to their own home. So this is a very important thing to keep in mind. Let's go to, I think this is one of the most biggest points of confusion. You have a lot of people who think that this conflict has been going on for thousands of years. It hasn't. It's only been going on for about 100 years. The fact is that prior to World War I and prior to about 1917, for hundreds of years, maybe longer, Jews and Muslims and Christians lived peacefully in Palestine, the area of Palestine, and in the broader Middle East generally. For hundreds of years, they lived together in peace, in relative peace, certainly more peaceful than they have been living in recent times. The Middle East used to be a refuge for Jews from Europe in the Middle Ages. So this is not something that has been going on for thousands of years, and it's just, they've been fighting since time immemorial. It's really not at all the case. And that's just flat out false. And then on the other end, you have a lot of people who think that this conflict has been going on. Oh, it just started on October 7th when there was the Hamas attack. And that's not the case. The reality is that the conflict between the Palestinians and the Jewish Israelis have been going on for about 100 years. And it all started with the political movement of Zionism, which called for a Jewish homeland in the area of Palestine. This is, if you could put a date on the conflict, I mean, it's kind of hard to put an exact date, but if I could put a date, it would be November 2nd, 1917. This is the date of the Balfour Declaration. This is kind of, it's a document because you got to understand the land of Palestine was part of the Ottoman Empire. And in World War I, the Ottoman Empire ceased to exist, and it was cut up and divided up among the foreign powers. But prior to the end of World War I, it was uncertain what was going to happen. So the British government, who was on the other side of the war against the Ottomans, it was the British, the French, and the Americans against the Germans and the Ottoman Empire, largely in World War I. So they were fighting each other. And the Ottomans had controlled Palestine for hundreds of years, and that's when the Jews and the Muslims lived in peace. However, at the end of the Ottoman Empire, the British came in control of this region. And the British made a promise to the Zionist community, and that is known in the Balfour Declaration. And that was, as I mentioned, on November 2nd, 1917. What was the Balfour Declaration? Well, it was a declaration of British support, and they had the means to support it because they were going to be the sovereign power after the Ottomans ceased to exist. To the British gave to the Zionist community, it was in the form of a letter from the British Foreign Secretary Balfour to the representative of the Rothschild banking dynasty, who was a big supporter, whose family was a big supporter of the Zionist movement. It was a form of a letter from Lord Balfour to Lionel Rothschild, promising a Jewish homeland in the land of Palestine. Now, at the time, Jews had lived there. It's not as if there were no Jews there. There certainly were. They just weren't a majority. They were far from a majority. They were 10% of the population, at best 10% of the population. And this is in 1917. So what you have here is the British government promising the international Zionist movement a Jewish homeland in an area where they were only 10% of the population. So that kind of really set the groundwork for this conflict. So that would be the start, a reasonable start date for the conflict would be the Balfour.
What would be the reason why that geographic location would have been chosen by the British individual? I can't remember. Is it Balfour?
Yeah, Balfour. Well, you got to understand, this was in the context of World War I, and what does everybody need in war? Everybody needs money in war. So who are the Rothschilds? The Rothschilds were a banking family, a very powerful banking family. So what you have here is the British government giving a concession to the international Zionist movement, a big concession. At the same time, the British government the British government got into trouble themselves because they promised Palestine to the Zionists, and they also promised it to the Arabs, because what they did in World War I is the British told the Arabs, who were living under the Ottoman Empire at the time, rise up against the Ottoman Empire. We will give you independence after we defeat them, and help us in our war against the Ottoman Empire. And the British did, and the Arabs did. They rose up against the Ottomans, thinking that they would get independence after the Ottomans were kicked out. That wasn't the case. The British screwed them, basically, and then gave the land to the Zionists. So this is kind of what happened. And the Zionists needed the British to do it because the British were in charge of that area. The Ottoman Empire got chopped up. The French took part of it, the British took part of it, and the part of Palestine fell under the jurisdiction of the British. So the British really were in charge of that area, and that's why they wrote that letter. So that was kind of if you were living in that area, it became clear that there was a movement, a powerful movement at that moment, that had the blessing of some of the most powerful governments in the world, that they were intent on establishing a state there. And that did not sit well with the native Palestinian population. They understood the implications of that, and the implications for them were terrible. So I would say that was really the start of, I mean, obviously Zionism pre-exists that, and for a couple more decades, but not by much. But I think that's a reasonable starting point for this conflict. So when you hear all this conflict's been going on for thousands of years, that's just wrong. It's just flat out false.
Well,
So
yeah. So a lot of people like to back that statement up too with the religious examples, right? The story of Abraham, and then they tie it to the Crusades, and I think I've never heard anyone share it this way that it's only been going on for 100 years. Although it sounds, the more you talk about it, to be most likely true. So how is everybody getting this so wrong? Is it just because of the media, or what?
yeah, it's foreign for a lot of people. It's foreign for me. I mean, I'm not an Arab. I'm not Israeli. I'm an Italian American, and it's a foreign for me. I mean, just as foreign as like a conflict between Rwanda or Uganda would be. So it's alien to a lot of people. Now, I would say this is not alien to Arabs or honest Jewish people who look at this. They know this is true. So they know this hasn't been going on for thousands of years. That's just a bunch of nonsense, frankly. Yes, there were the Crusades, but that was a totally separate conflict. It has nothing to do with Zionism and the conflict between Zionists and Palestinians. Completely different topic. Zionists weren't part of the Crusades. That was a totally different thing. So yeah, that's how I mean, ask anybody who's close to this conflict, who's personal to this conflict, and I think you'll find that to be an accurate view.
And I know you've got more to get to, which is great. And by the way, anyone tuning in now on the replay, this is ANCAP Radio. Thank you for joining us. We're here today with Nick Giambruno. Make sure you hit the like button, retweet button. Also, make sure you go follow Nick here on Twitter if you haven't already. Go follow Nick. He's got a lot of cool things going on. We're talking about the Middle East conflict today. But Nick, so what I'm wondering is, if we can't pinpoint it to everyone's sold, to your point, the people around the world that aren't from the Middle East, put it that way, they're sold on this idea that it's been going on for thousands of years. But also, I think very few people are aware of the genesis of the Zionist movement. So where did that come from? Where did that begin?
Yes, well, you can't understand the conflict without understanding that point you just raised, because it's fundamental to the conflict. It came in a period in rising nationalism. If you looked at that period in Europe, it came out of a rising nationalism. The nationalism was on the rise in Europe, and it came out of that too. It didn't start from that; it predated really the nationalists, but that's what really gave it legs, was the nationalist movements in Europe, and this is just a nationalist movement for homeland for the Jewish people. And Palestine wasn't the only location that was considered. There were other locations that were considered, but they settled on Palestine, and the Balfour Declaration really made it official. That made it official that that's what was going to happen, that there was going to be a Jewish state created in Palestine. Now, what does that mean? If Jews are only 10% of the population and they declare that their intent is to make a state in a place where they're only 10% of the population, what do you think that means? What do you think the other people are? What's going to happen to the other 90% of the people? So that's the genesis of the conflict. It's very clear. Look, people will disagree. There will be some people who disagree, but in my view, I think it's very clear. Anybody who is objectively looking at this situation, that is clearly the start of the conflict.
What are some of the resources that you turn to, aside from personal experience, that you think, again, maybe a lot of the world is not exposed to, as far as being able to get their hands, their eyes on literature or resources tied to the views that you're sharing?
Yeah, for decades, and it still exists to this day. I mean, the mainstream media is very pro-Israel, as are large institutions. They're very so. Westerners are saturated with the pro-Israel narrative, and it's very rare for them to get a different perspective on the situation. So look, it's tricky. There's a ton of books. I like to refer people to fellow ANCAP Saifuddin Ammous. I think he's a Palestinian. He grew up in Palestine. He's a solid ANCAP. He's also the author of the Bitcoin Standard. Look, Saif has written a lot about Palestine. Obviously, it's very personal to him. But if you want that different perspective, I mean, you're going to check out some of his writings and his videos on this topic, and I think you'll get a much deeper dive on what has really happened from their perspective. Because if you just turn on CNN or Fox News or MSNBC, you're basically just getting the Israeli point of view, and it's incumbent. I mean, look, this is not something that is. It shouldn't be relevant for Americans. Like this is a property dispute on the other side of the planet. What the hell does it have to do with Americans? It shouldn't have anything to do with Americans. But nonetheless, if it does for various reasons. But if you wanted to get see the other side, and I think it's very important to do that, that would be a good place to start, especially for people who are the anarcho-capitalist persuasion.
Right, and yeah, being an ANCAP, my approach, especially with this conflict, truthfully, has been to take as far back of a step as possible and just analyze the whole scenario. From getting to know you, it seems you have taken a more, because of your knowledge base too, have taken a more proactive stance in showing people, hey, the best way to be a true ANCAP is to actually show that Israel is wrong, or maybe just exposing the Zionist viewpoint. So that's what I want to tap into. Do you feel like more ANCAPs should, I don't know if get involved is the right word, but should be letting their networks know about what's, in your view, really going on?
Yeah, look, I'm not for people sticking their nose in other people's problems. I'd like to see the U.S. butt out of the Middle East. I don't want the U.S. involved in the Middle East. This is atrocious. But that being said, looking at it from the perspective of an ANCAP, and yeah, my opinion is that it's an atrocious violation of the Palestinians' property rights. It's a horrible violation of it for many, many decades. So it's an important thing. I think it's a litmus test. I really do. Because I think being an ANCAP, somebody who respects non-aggression and property rights, I think that's fundamentally incompatible with Zionism, frankly. So I think it's a good litmus test. I don't think you can be a Zionist and an ANCAP at the same time, because Zionism is predicated on systemic violation of property rights and systemic aggression. So I think it's a good litmus test. I really do.
So would you say, is it Zionists that are controlling Hollywood? You mentioned a lot of the media. I think it's pretty obvious too if you look into it when it comes to Hollywood and the media, and also just the legal aspect of things to see a lot of Jewish individuals there, right? Like there's no other way to look at it. So where do you draw the line though? Because I guess sometimes I have a hard time seeing, I have a lot of friends that are from Israel or Jewish, but at least they don't strike me as Zionists, right? So where does the line get drawn there?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, you should always look at people as individuals, because just because somebody is of a certain ethnic background doesn't mean they have certain philosophies. People have, I would judge people not on their ethnic background, but judge them on their philosophy and their actual viewpoints. So if you have somebody who's a friend who is pro violation of property rights and pro aggression, I mean, what are you going to do? That's just not fundamentally opposed to the ideas of anarcho-capitalism. So I would judge people not on their immutable characteristics, but judge them on their viewpoints. That's not immutable. Judge them on their philosophy. That's not immutable. So that's how I would do that. Let me just go real quick back to I've got a couple more. I wanted to go into more detail.
Oh, great. Yeah, continue,
other
please.
facts. So on number 4, I got to number 4 is that Israel does not and never has had defined borders. This is something most people don't know. Israel has never had defined borders. Now, why don't they have defined borders? Because they don't want to put. They've been expanding. If you look at the map of Israeli territorial control since 1948, it's been continuously expanding and gobbling up Palestinian land. And just remember, I mean, at the time of the Balfour Declaration, they were 10% of the population, and then they've just, look at what's happened to the Palestinians. It's I hate using words sloppily, and I like to use words accurately. And so, let's define a couple of hot button words. Ethnic cleansing. I mean, look at what the Webster's says. Webster's dictionary defines ethnic cleansing as the expulsion, imprisonment, or killing of an ethnic minority by a dominant majority in order to achieve ethnic homogeneity. I think it's that's clearly what's happened to the Palestinians. They've clearly been ethnically cleansed. There's no other way to describe that. So it's really a horrible thing that's happened to them. They've gone from being 90% of the population to being much, much, much less today. So this is an ongoing thing. And that's the reason they don't have defined borders, is because how much territory are they going to gobble up? That's a very important point. Another thing too is that this is also another fact, is that Jews were 10% of the population around 1917. They also owned less than 7% of the land. So this is something that was that has obviously grown. Now that's not to say that all Jewish claims are illegitimate. They're not. There are some legitimate property owners, and if you can trace it back to that period through property titles, it's completely legitimate. And in fact, many Zionists bought property from Palestinian Arabs and respected the existing system of property rights and bought property from them. So that's not the problem. The problem is when they want to declare a state for their own and expel and ethnically cleanse the local people there. That's what's the root of the problem here. There would be no Middle East conflict if property rights were respected, and I think that's the bottom line. And that's also why the borders aren't defined too, and they're not defined to this day. That Israel does not have defined borders. It's a very big deal. So that actually goes into my 5th fact, that Israel is actually not an ally of the United States. And that's in the technical sense and the practical sense. So this is what matters too. I mean, again, with the Webster's dictionary, what is an ally? According to Webster's, an ally is a sovereign state associated with another by treaty. Well, guess what? There is no treaty between the U.S. and Israel. Why is there no treaty? Because any kind of treaty, we were talking about a defense treaty here more specifically, like the U.S. has with, say, the United Kingdom or Japan or South Korea. What do you need in that? You need defined borders. So how do you know? You can't have a defense treaty or any kind of treaty with a country that doesn't have defined borders. So actually, when you hear all these politicians babble about how Israel is an ally, it's actually false. Israel is not an ally. Technically speaking, it's not. And I think words are important. So it's important to use that word accurately. And that's in the technical and legal sense. And then in the practical sense, what an ally, if you want to just use it in kind of the common language, what does Israel do for the United States? It doesn't do anything for the United States. It's not an ally.
So true. I mean, so we have a common. I got to make this comment. There's someone that we both know, and I'll leave his name out of it, but he always refers to, we'll just call it this Zionist energy, as a social parasite. And that's completely what you're describing right now, if you ask me, is a parasitical movement.
Well, you look at this, it's hard to see any benefit. There's a lot of costs. Look how much money the U.S. spends on Israel. They spend billions each year. It's the largest recipient of foreign aid. And also, it's not just Israel; it's Egypt and Jordan. Jordan and Egypt, the aid that goes to Egypt and Jordan it's basically bribe money. It's so they keep the peace. It's basically an aid to Israel too, because they're bribing the Egyptians and they're bribing the Jordanians to keep the peace with Israel. So it's all a giant racket, basically. And of course, it's no secret that there's a powerful lobby in Congress. That's no secret. So yeah, it's really unfortunate. So, in my view, what is the problem here? Why is that a problem? It's a huge problem. Think of it this way: you have about 10 million Israelis, 10 million Zionists in the world. They live among 400 million Arabs and among 2 billion Muslims. How on earth are these people ever going to live in peace? They have to make peace. There's no choice. If they want, unless they want to, they can't kill their way. The Israelis cannot kill their way out of this situation. There's just simply too many Muslims and too many Arabs. They're vastly outnumbered. So they can't kill their way out of this. And every civilian that they kill creates 2 times, maybe 5 times, maybe 10 times more fighters that are going to be dedicated to fighting them. That's somebody's, brother or somebody's sister or somebody's uncle. Killing civilians, which it does not help them, and they just can't kill their way out of it. It's just going to create more fighters. You know what it's going to do? It's going to make it into an unwinnable guerrilla war, and they're going to lose that proposition. So it's in Israel's own interest to have peace. But so why don't they have peace? It's so obvious. I mean, just look at the numbers. It's very obvious that it's in their own interest to make peace. So why don't they make peace? It's because they have the unconditional support of the world's superpower. They don't feel like they need to make peace. They've got the United States on their side. They have unlimited financial support, unlimited diplomatic support, unlimited military support. So they don't feel the need to make peace. The hell with the Arabs and the Muslims. So that is the biggest impediment to peace, is U.S. support for Israel. And I think it's atrocious from an anarcho-capitalist perspective that people's tax money and moral energy is given away without consent. Sure, if individuals want to do what they want to do, totally fine. But it's not fine to have a government, coercively take money through taxation and inflation and other means and divert it to some pet project halfway across the world. But that's the problem, and I think that would solve the conflict tomorrow morning. Because if the Israelis didn't have that backing of a superpower, well, they would be negotiating by tomorrow morning with their neighbors. So that is the biggest impediment to peace. Is frankly the United States and the United States support, unconditional blank check support for one side. So if you really wanted to solve this problem, that's what you would do. And yes, it's complicated because now there are lots of, it's messy because you can't just say, well, we got to respect property rights, and you do. But how do you solve this? It's going to have to be solved through the people who live there, a negotiation, an honest negotiation between Israelis and Palestinians without the U.S. The U.S. is not an honest broker. That's a load of crap. I mean, and almost nobody believes that. But that's the real impediment, because one side, you have a global superpower supporting one side, and they don't feel like they need to negotiate. That's what I think, frankly, needs to happen to get this solved. Because at the end of the day, it's just a property dispute. It's a property dispute on the other side of the world, and it's up to those people to solve it. Frankly, it's not up to the United States to solve it. It's not up to Europe to solve it. It's up to the people who live there to solve it. And the U.S. really just needs to. The U.S. cannot do no good by interfering more into this region.
I've got some questions, and by the way, if anyone wants to hop up here, ask Nick a question, all you got to do is tap the request button there at the bottom of the screen. But Nick, if you could, or did you have more points?
I think, well, sure, but we can take a break and go back to them.
Okay, because as I say, if you have more, happy to let you continue to go through them before we wind it down here. But I mean, my curiosity is, obviously the Zionist movement is something that began outside of the state. It's beyond the state level, from what it sounds like. They've been able to manipulate the state level and maybe even the religious level. I'm just wondering, where did they come from? How long have they been planning what we're watching take place now?
What's going on in the Middle East? Well, that's been going on,
Just maybe like do they? Because I've heard that the movement maybe began in like the 15 or 1600s.
the Zionist
The
movement.
Zionists.
No. The Zionist
Yeah.
movement very clearly started in the late 1800s with a guy named Theodor Herzl, and it really came to fruition in the coming decades. So no, it does not extend back there, all the way back there. It started in the 1800s, late 1800s, and really became a force to be reckoned with the Balfour Declaration. That's really as far back as it goes.
And so, was it a group of? I just wonder, where did the group begin planning and meeting, and how did they know to approach Balfour and basically manipulate that state at the time to do what it wanted to? There had to be a strategy or a plan put together, from a series of meetings that took place somewhere. And it just has me wondering, where did this all begin? Did it begin with people who consider themselves Jewish, or is it beyond that? Were we talking aliens here? Like, I just want to know, why are they so evil?
Yeah, I mean, look, there's a lot to unpack there. I would say start with the Balfour Declaration and work backwards from there. Who was Lord Balfour? He's kind of not the more important part. The more important party on the Balfour Declaration was Lionel Rothschild. Start from there and work your way back. And I think this is something that volumes of books could be written on. But that's just, I'm just trying to give the essential points. But if people are interested in pulling on that ball of yarn, start there.
All right. And we do have our first caller here. I know he's getting connected right now. Once he is, it looks like we got two, Arm James and Jaffer. So I know we did bring James up here first, but we'll see who gets connected first and allow that individual to proceed. Both connecting.
Hello.
Thank you, team, by the way, for doing that. And if you guys haven't checked out the links in the thread below, be sure to do so. We're here with Nick Giambruno. It's interesting. I'm seeing they're both connecting here. Team, am I going crazy? It looks like we're waiting for them to connect.
Yeah.
There we go. They both joined at the same time. So James, I know we did bring you up here first, and Jaffer will go second. So James, just let us know where you're tuned in from and what your question or comment is.
Yeah. Yep. Good afternoon. How are you? I just got home, and I'm just kind of in between after picking up my kid, and just listening into the conversation. I had this conversation briefly with a friend of mine last night, and the geopolitical issue that they're having in the Middle East. And I completely agree with, I believe his name was Nick, that, yeah, this is going to cost, like, the money being, like, the United States needs to get the hell out of there, obviously. The issue I'm having, and what I brought up to my friend last night, was why hasn't some military or police or somebody who has a bit of a brain cell that they can put together and just intervene and say, this isn't working. Our generations below us are going to suffer for all of this. We can't continue. We need to do something else. It's not working. We're not doing any better as of now. Like, what's going on there? Like, why hasn't someone stepped in and just went, you're crazy. You guys are psychopaths. We can't continue doing this. We're suffering. Do you know what I'm saying? And that's about all I got to say, because I'm still. Anyway, that's all.
And James, where are you calling in from again?
Just Ontario.
Nice.
I know you're
Nick,
from Ontario.
Yeah. I'm here now, so good to see you here. Nick, go ahead. In response to that.
I think he makes some good points, and the main point is that why are governments behaving in ways that are contrary to the interests of their average citizens? That's a very important question. The reason is because powerful people want the current policies to continue, and the people in charge don't give a crap about everyday people, and they're going to cater to those powerful interests. It's sad, but that's just the reality.
Right. I completely agree with you. That's exactly the answer that my friend gave me. And then I came back with, then the people need to do something. The people need to band together and fight back against the neocon psychopaths that are leading the next generations down a path of absolute shit stains. Like, it's just going to be absolutely really bad. Like, I just see no other way other than the people taking up arms and telling the government enough is enough. You're destroying anything that's good. Like, I don't see it any other way.
Yeah, I mean, it starts with educating people and getting the word out and spreading the truth, because the truth doesn't need a marketing department. The truth doesn't need a lobbying firm. And you know, the fact is that a lot of this is predicated on lies and deception and propaganda, and a lot of people put a lot of money into those things. You know, the truth doesn't need any of that stuff. So I would just say that it starts with people understanding this and demanding from their government that they don't be involved in this. That's what's going to have to happen.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. I'm floored with the last 2 years. I've just been floored that this has been going on, and it's
Well,
overwhelming.
yeah, and I think what Nick's saying too, James, is get as an example this recording to your friend and really just people in your network. I know we all want to sometimes feel like we can save the whole world, but we can focus on the
Right.
people around us. That's really how you can make the biggest impact. So it's really good to see you back here, and
Thanks.
appreciate your listenership, and look forward to seeing you in the future too, and maybe even here in Ontario. We'll see you, and I'll have to connect. So, Jaffer, you've been waiting patiently. I'm sure you're calling in from Montreal. If not, let us know. And what's your question?
Yeah, Montreal, it's -1 degrees here. Hi, Adam. Hi, Nick. How are you?
Hi.
Doing well.
My first question for you, Adam, for the folks result of November, do you have or did you make a decision, or should we once again give our nominee?
Oh, for the Guy Fawkes Award. Yeah, we're aggregating the nominees from November and this month, and I believe we'll see if Dave's able to join us here. I know he got caught on a flight, but if we have to push the award back a month, what we'll do is we'll just increase the payout. So if it was going to be 1,000, from my understanding, it'll be a $2,000 payout for whoever wins it. And again, 20% to the nominor. So if you have anyone, Jaffer, or anyone tuned in right now, if you'd
No,
like to
I did
nominate,
I did my nominee since 1 month now. It was on I don't know. It was not in a message. It was just in a
I think you
post.
tweeted.
Have you? Yeah, I've spoken about Jeff Berwick, but have you taken that into account, or should I do it again?
I would say do it again and email it to ncapradio@gmail.com, and that goes for everyone tuned in right now as well. If you have anyone you'd like to nominate for the Guy Fawkes Award, you can just go to our Twitter profile. You can see how the award is outlined. It's pretty straightforward. We just want to reward people who are fighting against the state and winning. So, yeah, don't quote me on that, but I think the next one will most likely be a $2,000 payout just because we did not do one last month. So, ncapradio@gmail.com, submit your nominees there, and if yours gets selected, you get 20% of it. And so, Jaffer,
Okay.
you had a question for Nick?
Yeah, Nick. Not a question. First, it was just a comment about what what um, what led America or USA to Israel, which is in the other side of the earth. But I will tell him what led the USA to make war in Vietnam or in Korea or in these regions. They are also far away from Israel. Okay, and for the average American, it's foreign for him what happens there. Okay, and I have another point. I was expecting to learn how to make money with this crisis in the Middle East in this radio today, but I've shared a link in the comments of Haaretz, which is an Israeli newspaper, uh, showcasing that somebody out there have made some money while he was expecting this crisis on the 7th of October. Okay, and my question is, as a capitalist or somebody who want to make money, is it ethic to make money on war while you know that people are dying, suffering, and things like that? So this is my question.
Well, the way all of these defense companies is that they are making money from the government. So they're basically, it's unethical. Yes, it is. It is unethical because not just because of that, but because of how these people are. I mean, it is unethical, but look at this. So, like Lockheed Martin and Boeing, they all get money from the government, and that's all stolen money because it's taken from them, taken from other people by taxation. So, yeah, on that sense, that is unethical. So all of these wars you mentioned, of course, are unethical. I'm, not against Vietnam or Korea or any of these things. I don't think the U.S. should be the policeman of the world. That's a horrible thing. So no, I'm not a fan of this. I don't particularly, stripping out the moral argument, I don't really see any. It's like this. Would you like to invest in Pfizer when they're rolling out the COVID vaccine? Maybe you can make some money, but I don't like investing in my own slavery, frankly.
That's a really good way to put it. Jaffer, did you have any follow-up on that?
It's the same way for me. Don't let me misunderstood, Nick, okay? I was just looking at what happens in the world and how people are making money on the back of people suffering and killings and things like that. I have made another comment and a video explaining exactly the situation in the Middle East for some who want to know more about this situation and the history behind that. Simply, you have to educate yourselves. There are plenty of books speaking of history, books speaking of the beginning of this conflict and with details. It's really available in the internet, on the libraries or whatever. Just try to find the right information there, rather than waiting for CNN or Fox or whatever mainstream outlet to give you the information. Thank you.
Thank you, Jaffer. It's always great to have you here. And just to clarify, Jaffer dropped some links in the thread here, everyone. So be sure to check those out. And we are going to wind it down here now. And so I just want to make sure, Nick, I know you might have had a couple more bullet points, so I want to make sure we hammer those home before we move on.
Just a couple of quick things here. Yeah, the wider geopolitical implications of this is that this ongoing conflict very easily could trigger a large regional war, the likes we haven't seen for generations. And that's going to possibly have a very, very big impact on oil. Obviously, the Middle East is responsible for a large portion of global oil production. So if this thing metastasizes into a regional war, which it very easily could in the coming weeks, that is going to hit everybody very hard. So that would, we can dive into that perhaps another time, because that's another topic that deserves to be unpacked. But yeah, that would be the larger geopolitical, and then of course there's more the global implications of that, as the whole kind of world order is changing from a unipolar world order to more of a multipolar world order. So there's a lot going on right now. There's no shortage of events. It's definitely not a boring time. It's sad because it's a horrific time for many people, but it's it's very consequential. So people really should understand what's going on.
100%. And everyone make sure, again, you check out Nick's website, which is in the thread. Follow him here on Twitter as well. And we'll leave on this note, the Bitcoin note. I know we've had you on the show before to talk about Bitcoin, and maybe we'll do some variation of this or the Middle East again in the coming months. But how are you feeling coming into 2024 about Bitcoin and maybe even just the crypto market? Because from what it looks like, it seems like we're going to have an above average year compared to the last couple.
Sure. Well, first clarification, I only follow Bitcoin. I'm not a fan of the altcoins, frankly. I've written about that extensively. You can find more on that. So I'm really just interested in Bitcoin, and I think Bitcoin is going to have an exciting year in 2024. There's a lot of things coming up. There's the halving, which is where the new annual supply gets cut in half. You're going to have an ETF most likely be approved. You could see some more nation states start to adopt Bitcoin. So I think, and the Fed looks like it's going to go back to easy money. The FASB, which is the Financial Accounting Standards Board, just changed how they allow companies and corporations to use a different fair value accounting in Bitcoin. That's huge. I mean, without getting too much into the weeds, is that it's a game changer for companies that want to hold Bitcoin on their balance sheet. That's a very positive. So there's a lot of positive catalysts. So I'm bullish for Bitcoin in 2024.
We'll be keeping an eye out as well and paying attention to your feed. Last thing, Nick, what would you say was your biggest takeaway from today's conversation?
Is that the Middle East conflict is not too complicated to wrap or too hard to understand. You can wrap your mind around it. It just requires looking at alternative information. The stuff you're not going to get a proper understanding of the conflict from the mainstream media. You'll just get propaganda and garbage, frankly. But it is possible to wrap your mind around this. It's not too complicated. And it's relevant because of what is not just going on in the region. It's relevant because all these U.S. government, all these Western governments are intervening in this conflict too. So you got to know what's going on. I mean, you can't keep your head in the sand. And this is a very important piece of understanding of what's going on in the world.
Right. To me, I think my biggest takeaway and what I found most fascinating was just the viewpoint that this has not been going on for thousands of years, that this has been only going on for about the past century. Any further clarification or direction as far as to where we can go I'll just call it read up on that, because otherwise everybody's going to think that this goes back to Abraham.
Sure. I would repeat my prior recommendation. Saifedean Ammous, he's a Palestinian ANCAP and author. You can find him on Twitter at Saifedean. He writes about this frequently. He knows it from a firsthand perspective, and that's at Saifedean.
Wonderful. And to our team, if you could get that in the thread or somewhere on our feed as a resource, that'd be fantastic. Thank you all for investing your most valuable resource with us here today, your time on ANCAP Radio. Nick, you as well. I know you're taking time out of your busy day to share the good, so we really appreciate it. Everyone, make sure you hit the like button, the retweet button, follow everyone up here on stage, and we look forward to seeing you next week at 3 p.m. Eastern. We're working on a guest right now. As you heard earlier, I teased out who it could be. If not, it'll be me and Dave, and then we have a few other guests lined up coming into the new year that are confirmed: Gregory Sams, Louise Kenny, and many more. So, again, thank you for your time, and we will see you guys next Thursday at 3 o'clock. Nick, thank you.
Hey, thank you, Adam.